Well, I'm joined via Skype by the GP, Dr. Hamad Khan. So, Dr. Khan, is this your experience? Are you operating at your very limit?
Absolutely. That's the case across the board in general practice at the moment. We have a situation where we have an aging population, which is increasingly complex, both from a medical perspective, because they often have complex, multiple chronic conditions, often intertwined with social issues as well, which are intractable and which are very difficult to manage. So that means that the health burden on general practice and the NHS has increased massively over the last few years. And in addition to that, we also have had a situation where funding has flatlined over the last few years. And as a result of that, the intensity of the workload in general practice has increased, the complexity has increased, and GPs are burning out. We have a higher rate of burnout than perhaps we have ever had before. A lot of GPs are retiring as soon as they can. Thousands are emigrating. GP training places are empty. In many places, up to about 30%, even in some areas. And this has led to a huge shortage of GPs, so much so that it's very difficult to staff the normal routine 5-day service, let alone stretch it to a routine 7-day service.
The problem is democracy, really, Dr. Khan. I mean, in that the Conservative Party said that they wanted to introduce this 7-day, this truly 7-day a week NHS, and they were elected into office. They now have the push to make this a reality. So isn't this just a case of you having to adapt to what the government and, in effect, what the people of Britain want?
Look, I'd be delighted to have a 24/7 GP service, but the fact of the matter is that there are not enough GPs for the routine 5-day service at the moment. There is a situation where practices have been advertising for GPs and have often had vacancies which have been unfilled for a year or even longer. So if we can't get GPs into positions where they provide the routine 5-day services, it's impossible to think that we will be able to recruit enough GPs to provide services on Saturdays and Sundays. The issue is nothing to do with democracy, really. The fact is that we simply don't have enough funding or enough resource for the number of GPs that would be needed to provide routine 7-day services. That's the fundamental issue here. We've had a flatlining of funding over the last few years, and as I said earlier, the complexity of health issues and the aging population mean that the workload is much more intense and much more complex than it has been in the past. So when you have resources which are not increasing, but a health burden which is increasing and is becoming more complicated, it's clear that you won't be able to stretch the service even more because it's difficult to provide the current levels of service as it is.
You're obviously painting a fairly gloomy picture here. I mean, is this just purely about money? Is this what the NHS needs at the moment? It's being starved of the cash necessary to deal with these challenges that it's facing?
I think to a large extent it is. I mean, the statistics are in front of us. As a percentage of our national wealth, we spend lower amounts on health than the average developed country does. That's a matter of fact. That's a matter of statistical fact. Nobody can dispute that. But in addition, what I'd ideally want to see is an end to the constant restructuring that we continually have with different governments and different political parties and so on, and ultimately a detachment of the NHS and the running of the NHS from party politics. And what we need to enable that is some sort of cross-party commission or cross-party consensus, which almost goes above party politics and above 4-year electoral terms to take evidence-based decisions which are in the interest of the NHS. So what we need to do is uncouple politics from the running of the NHS, together with increased funding.
Dr. Khan, we're very grateful for your time. Thanks very much indeed.